Hello dear students, welcome to this lesson. I'm Dr. Madhuri Goswami. In today's lesson, we are going to study active and passive voice. Dear students, to explore this topic, first let's understand what is voice in English grammar. What does this mean? The literal meaning of this word is sound that is produced by a person or anything. But what's the meaning of this word in the grammatical context? Let's sketch on this. Grammatical context में voice का क्या meaning है, इसका क्या अर्थ है, यह समझना और यह जानना हमारे लिए इसलिए भी आवश्यक है ताकि हमारी basic understanding clear हो और हम active voice and passive voice को identify कर सकें, which are two types of voice in English grammar. So, active से passive voice और passive से active voice में change करने के लिए apply किए जाने वाले rules को समझने से पहले आइए हम समझें कि एक sentence में voice क्या है, इसे किस प्रकार define किया जा सकता है और किस प्रकार identify किया जाता है. When it will be clear to you, you will be able to understand easily how to recognize the voice of a sentence. The word voice has been originated from the Latin word vocem, that means call. But now let's focus upon the grammatical meaning of this term. In traditional grammar, voice is the quality or feature of a verb that indicates whether the subject acts or it's acted upon. In simple words, we can say the voice is related to the verb in a sentence. That means it's a feature, it's a quality of the verb. So there might be two situations. In the first one, the subject is active in the sentence, or we can say the subject acts upon the object. And in the another one, the subject is acted upon. It does not act. It's in passive mode. It is the receiver of the action. And this is called the passive voice because the subject is passive. Thus, we can say एक sentence का subject active होने की अवस्था में उस sentence के verb की voice active होती है. Whereas, if the subject is not active, यदि किसी sentence में उसके subject के द्वारा कार्य नहीं किया जाता, अर्थात वह action उस subject पर किया जा रहा है, then it's in the passive voice. For example, you're studying English. In this sentence, you is the subject and it is the doer of the action of studying. So, this is in the active voice. In the next sentence, English is being studied by you. इस sentence का subject क्या है? English. क्या इस sentence में action इस subject के द्वारा किया जा रहा है? The answer is no. इस सब्जेक्ट पर एक्शन हो रहा है यानी स्टडी इंग्लिश पर हो रही है. So the voice of this sentence is passive. The conclusion is the voice of a verb describes the relationship between the action, that is verb, and the participants, that is the subject of that sentence. So I hope it's quite clear what's voice in English grammar. It's a feature of verb that tells us about the status of the subject and verb and their being active or passive. There might be a question. Why should we use the passive voice in place of the active voice? When we can express some idea in the active voice which is more clear, direct and concise, what's the need of using the passive voice in place of that? Active voice के स्थान पर passive voice क्यों और कब use किया जाता है? All these questions are valid and they need to be answered. So, here we go. The passive voice is used when we want to emphasize, when we want to focus the action, the verb and the object of a sentence rather than its subject. This means that the subject is either less important than the action itself or that we don't know who or what the subject is. एक्टिव वॉइस के स्थान पर पैसिव वॉइस का यूज़ तब किया जाता है जबकि हमारा फोकस या एम्फेसिस एक्शन पर हो क्रिया पर हो ना कि सब्जेक्ट पर, या फिर हमें यह ज्ञात ही नहीं हो कि उस क्रिया को, उस एक्शन को करने वाला डूअर कौन है या क्या है. Besides these, we use the passive voice in the formal writings, or when we write a report, and that's usually written in the formal language. So we use the passive voice in place of the active voice. Let's understand it in the context. क्यों ना हम current context को ही लें? What did I just say? I said that we use the passive voice in place of the active voice. Please listen carefully. If my emphasis is on the action, that is the use of the passive voice, then I would say the passive voice is used in the place of the active voice. In this sentence, I have used the passive voice. Are you confused? Okay, I'll make it clear. हम एक्टिव वॉइस के स्थान पर पैसिव वॉइस यूज करते हैं. इस सेंटेंस में हमारा फोकस हम पर है, दैट इज द सब्जेक्ट. कौन यूज करते हैं? हम यूज करते हैं. बट माई फोकस शुड बी ऑन द यूज ऑफ पैसिव वॉइस. बात में फोकस कहाँ है? कि पैसिव का यूज. So the sentence should be in the passive voice. So I should say the passive voice is used in the place of active voice by us. Since it's not important to tell by whom, क्योंकि हमारा फोकस सब्जेक्ट या कर्ता पर नहीं है, इसलिए हम यहाँ passive voice का यूज़ करेंगे. हमारा फोकस है उस एक्शन पर जिसके बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं. Now let me make it quite clear that only a transitive verb has these two voices. If you recall, we have already discussed what's a transitive verb in the lesson on basic sentence structures in English. A transitive verb is a verb that takes up an object after it compulsorily. So the point is, if we want to change the active voice into passive voice, in that case, the verb should be transitive. Then only it will take up an object after it, and then we can change it into passive voice. It means active से passive voice में change करने के लिए यह आवश्यक है कि उस sentence की verb transitive होनी चाहिए. In that case only, we can change the active into passive voice. So please remember, when the subject is the agent or doer of the action, the verb is in the active voice. Generally, in the examination or assessments, students are asked to change the voice of the sentences from active to passive or passive to active. And it can be possible in only that case if one can identify the voice. वॉइसेस को आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए हमें सेंटेंस के फॉर्म एंड मीनिंग दोनों पर अटेंशन पे करना होगा. वी नीड टू सी, वी नीड टू चेक दैट द सब्जेक्ट इज द एजेंट और डूअर ऑफ द एक्शन. इफ इट इज सो, देन इट इज इन द एक्टिव वॉइस. इफ नॉट, देन इट्स द पैसिव वॉइस. सेकेंड थिंग, in active voice, a sentence emphasizes subject performing an action. यदि आपका emphasis subject पर है तो आप एक्टिव वॉइस यूज़ करेंगे. यदि आपका एम्फेसिस एक्शन या ऑब्जेक्ट पर है तो आप पैसिव वॉइस यूज़ करेंगे. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड इट विद एन एग्जाम्पल. द हंटर किल्ड द लायन. इफ आवर फोकस इज टू टेल हु किल्ड द लायन, if our focus is on the subject, then we would say the hunter killed the lion. Whereas the focus of the speaker is on the action and on the object, then we would say the lion was killed by the hunter. We want to convey this message that the lion was killed. Then we would use the passive voice. I hope it's crystal clear what voice is in the English grammar and why the passive voice is used in place of the active voice. Now in the next lesson, we will meet significant terms like agent, action and the receiver. Do these words sound like some Hollywood or Bollywood terms? Stay tuned to know the secret. Thank you for joining. Happy learning.